Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel. This is Mark, and some time ago my family and I bought an abandoned piece of land and we're turning into our home. Right now, we're building our house with our own hands, and once it's finished, we have plenty of exciting projects planned, like digging a pond, bringing in animals, doing loads of gardening, building a cellar for our veggies, and much more. If that sounds interesting to you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. This is our story. In the previous episode, we placed all the rebars in their correct positions and formed a solid ring beam. And in today's video, we continue the journey. After preparing all the tools I needed for the day, it was time to get to work. Today, we're starting with these small rebar towers, which will later be covered with concrete. Even though I already had some rebars pre-cut, there was still a lot more to do. I needed to cut both 12mm and 6mm rebars and basically repeat the same process we used to do with the ring beam. But this time, vertically. This step is extremely important for the structure of the building. These towers will connect the ring beam with the wall plate, which is a wooden beam that serves as the base of the entire roof. Originally, I planned to place the wall plate directly on top of the ring beam, but my dad suggested lifting it up about 50 centimeters, so the upstairs space would be much larger. I thought about it for a long time because I knew it would mean a lot more work, but in the end, I gave in. That extra space will definitely be worth in the long run. After all the rebars were cut, it was time to move inside the house and build a simple workstand using bricks and pallet. I mounted the rebar bender on the top of the pallet, and then I was ready to start. I began with the easier part, bending all the 6mm rebars into stirrups. Each tower needed 3 stirrups, so in total I made 54 pieces. I tried to be as precise as possible because there isn't much room for error. The concrete needs to fully cover the rebars. Once all the 6mm stirrups were done, I moved on to the main pieces that form the core of the towers. These were 12mm ones. I had to bend the last few centimeters so they could hook into the ring beam before we poured the concrete. With everything prepared, it was time to climb up on the top of the wall and start installing the towers. I won't lie, I struggled quite a bit with the first two. It was my first time doing this, and knowing how important this step is didn't really help me. My mind kept racing with what if. Eventually, I called my dad and asked him to check everything on camera, and thankfully everything looked good in the end. I started by building the 4 corners. The plan was to place 9 towers along each of the longer sides of the house, spaced about 1.2 meters apart. That makes 18 towers total. After a few hours on this beautiful sunny day, the entire right side was done and finished, and it was time to move on to the other side. That same day, I finished installing all the towers, and I was more than happy to say goodbye to the rebars. At that point, I felt like I had seen enough rusty steel to last a lifetime, and I could really use a short break from it. I couldn't have been more wrong though, because right after that, the next step also involved a lot more rebars. But before my dad could tell me about it, he managed to miss quite a few of my calls, so instead of waiting around, I decided to mow the grass. It's part of my weekly routine, and honestly, I really enjoy it. Sometimes I wonder when I'll finally say that's enough, but so far I'm still loving it. It's not just about how the property looks, it actually has a deeper meaning. Where there is nature, there are predators too, and one of the biggest ones around here is ticks. We have quite a lot of them, so protecting ourselves is important. One of the best ways to do that is simply keeping the grass short. It turns out to be the most effective defense against these little blood-sucking creatures. And let's be honest, the smell of freshly cut grass brings back childhood, memories, and instantly takes you 20 years back in time. Alright, back to reality. Eventually, my dad called me back and started talking about shear reinforcement. Since this isn't really my area of expertise, I won't pretend to know more than I do or share any false information. What I do know is that these extra rebars were required inside the ring beam, specifically at the points where windows and door openings meet the walls. Because our ring beam wasn't wide enough, mainly due to using U-blocks, we had to add additional reinforcement to ensure the long-term durability of the structure. You can imagine these rebars as a flattened Z shape placed inside the rebar cage along the sides. But probably it's easier just to show you what was done. And yes, once again, that meant quite a bit of measuring. Cutting more and more rebars to the right size, double checking the plans, check the instructions, and finally bending 28 of these Z-shaped rebars. Before starting the mass production, I made a test piece first, just to make sure the size and shape were correct, and that it would actually fit inside the ring beam. Once I was confident that everything fit properly, it was time to reproduce it and simply copy that one piece 27 more times. Each window opening required 4 of these shear reinforcement pieces, 2 on each side, and as you can see, I installed them in less than 40 seconds. Well, maybe a little longer in real life, but in the end, everything came together and the job got done. Finally, all the rebar pieces were in place, and the next day it was time to pour the concrete. Ideally, a ring beam should be poured in one go. This keeps it structurally continuous, improving long-term durability and helps avoid weak spots and cracks. I wasn't sure if I could manage everything on my own in a single day, mixing, moving and placing the concrete, so I asked my father-in-law to come over and help me. Thankfully, he was more than happy to lend a hand. He took care of mixing the concrete while I focused on filling the ring beam. We also had quite a bit of rain during the night, which actually worked in our favor. the blocks were already wet, so we could skip an extra step. Soil bed blocks absorbs a lot of water, and it's important to wet them before pouring the concrete. This prevents the concrete from curing too quickly, which could lead to cracking. That said, I still had to sweep all the excess water out of the house. At one point we could barely walk inside. And here it goes, the first bucket followed by many more. It was a pretty straightforward task. Lift the heavy bucket of concrete, pour it into the ring beam, shake the rebar cage, compact everything well so the concrete could spread everywhere. And make sure all the rebars are fully covered. My father-in-law was mixing the concrete and delivering it to me, while I was working from the stand and filling the ring beam. I have to say, I was genuinely impressed by the load-bearing capacity of these plastic buckets. They were pretty cheap, they performed surprisingly well throughout the whole building process and didn't break at all. Working with concrete is hard work. Even a half bucket is heavy, let alone when it's full and you have to lift it above your shoulder height. But you know what? Whenever I got tired, I had my little helpers climbing up to me, give me an extra hand. First, the younger one decided she needs to be part of the ring beam project. And soon after, the older one followed. By the time they grow up, they will have already plenty of hands-on experience. Once each section was filled and properly compacted, I used a straight wooden board to level the top of the ring beam, making sure everything was nice and flat. It's much easier to do this before the concrete cures, rather than having to scrape off hardened bits later on. We used a stronger concrete mix because the ring beam is a key structural element that holds the entire building together. The mix was 1 part of cement and 3 parts of sand and gravel mix. Before we started pouring the concrete, I checked all the supports under the windows and doors, and I'm happy to say they held up very well without any issues. Even though this part of the project was quite labor intensive, it was also loads of fun. I'm really grateful to have had my father-in-law helping us, and special thanks to my wife as well. She lifted plenty of buckets and chased the kids all day long at the same time. In 2 weeks we will continue the work. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, leave a comment and share it with your friends. And if you don't want to miss the next episode, consider subscribing and following our journey. If you like to support our project, you will find all the details in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Mark is out. Peace.